Think about the last time you were on a plane, cruising miles above the clouds, and you bought a drink with your credit card. It seems so normal. But if you really stop and think about it for a second, it's kind of magic, isn't it? That simple little tap hides this incredible story about technology, risk, and a revolution that is literally changing how money moves around the entire globe. So yeah, that's the big question, right? How does that little plastic card or the tap from your phone actually talk to the global financial network from inside a metal tube that's hurtling through the sky? All right, let's get into it. First up, we're going to solve this mid-flight mystery. What is really going on when that flight attendant takes your card? Well, it turns out there are basically two ways this whole thing can go down. If the plane has some decent satellite Wi-Fi, the transaction can be processed right then and there, in real time, just like it would be on the ground. The signal goes from the card reader to the plane's network, bounces off a satellite, and boom, your bank says yes or no. But that's often not what happens. Yeah, most of the time, especially on flights without great Wi-Fi, the system does something called batch processing. The little card reader just stores your transaction details. It has absolutely no idea if your card is any good or if you have money in your account. The airline is basically taking a little gamble, betting that your $5 purchase for a soda is going to go through when they finally process all those stored transactions after the plane is back on the ground. And this whole idea, storing information now to process it later, it is so much bigger than just buying snacks on a plane. It's actually a super important principle for pretty much any app that has to work when the world isn't perfectly connected. There's a name for this, and it's called offline first. It's a whole way of thinking about building software where you assume the internet might not be there. So instead of crashing or freezing, the app just keeps on working, collecting all the data it needs, and then just waits to sync up later. So, how does it pull that off? Well, this is where some really clever mobile database technologies come in. You can think of it like a smart mini database that lives right there on the device itself, whether that's the flight attendant's card reader or a scientist's tablet out in the middle of nowhere. And the process is actually beautiful in its simplicity. Step 1, the data gets captured and stored right there on the device. Step 2, the app just keeps on working like nothing's wrong. And then step 3, as soon as it finds an internet connection, like when the plane lands, all that saved up data automatically syncs back to the main server. It's simple, it's powerful, and it's totally essential for our modern world. Okay, now let's zoom out. Because that exact same journey from process later to process now that we see happening on airplanes, that's a perfect analogy for the journey our entire global payment system has been on for the last decade. For decades, most banking was pretty much like that offline airplane. Your payments would get collected up in these big batches and only get processed hours, sometimes even days later. But that world, it's quickly vanishing, and it's being replaced by something way, way faster. And this is what replaced it: immediate payments. And we're not just talking about a faster version of the old way. The goal here is for it to work just like an ATM. You start the transaction, and within just a few seconds, the money has moved and the deal is completely done. This new way of doing things is built on a few really non-negotiable principles. First, immediate credit. The money is actually there and usable in seconds. Second, irrevocability. This one's huge. Once you hit send, it is gone. There are no takebacks. Then there's certainty of fate. You know instantly if it worked or failed. And maybe the most important of all, 24/7 availability. The system is always on. So how in the world did they pull this off? Well, the key thing to understand is this massive fundamental shift in the architecture, moving away from what we call a pull system to a push system. This table just lays it out so clearly. With a credit card, that's a pull system. You give your card details to a merchant, and their system reaches out and pulls the money from your bank. With immediate payments, it's a total opposite. You log in directly with your own bank, and you push the money to the merchant. Your secret info never even touches their system. And this is exactly why that change is such a huge deal. That old pull model where your secret card number gets passed through all these different merchant systems, well, it's been a security nightmare. Basically every single data breach you hear about where millions of credit card numbers get stolen, that is a failure of the pull model. And the price tag for that broken model, it's just staggering. We're talking over $11 billion. Every single year. That's the global loss just from card fraud. It creates a pretty massive incentive to build something better. And this quote right here just nails the solution.
By authenticating directly with your own bank, the institution you already trust, your credentials, your passwords, your security info, they are never exposed to anyone else. The whole system is just fundamentally more secure by design.
So, great. We're building this faster, safer world of money. But, and you know there's always a but, this brand new speed creates some brand new challenges.
You know, when the UK launched its own system, some critics immediately gave it a nickname, faster fraud. Because think about it, when a payment is instant and you can't reverse it, the stakes get a whole lot higher. If you get tricked into sending money to a scammer, it is gone in seconds, forever. And that puts incredible pressure on the banks to spot the fraud before you hit send. And there's this other massive technical hurdle. The system can never, ever turn off. No shutting down for maintenance, no closing for the holidays. This demands an insane level of technical resilience, something that the old batch-based banking systems were just never, ever designed to handle.
So, there you have it. We started with this simple, kind of quirky question about buying a soda at 30,000 feet. And just by pulling on that one thread, we've unraveled this massive technological shift from store and forward to an instant everything world that's completely reshaping security, technology, and what we all expect from our money. And that kind of leaves us with one last big question to chew on. We're all getting used to this idea of instant, irreversible payments. But what happens to our society, our businesses, our patients, when we start to demand that same instant, final result from every other part of our lives?